My name is Oleksandra Matviichuk. I am a human rights lawyer, head of the Center for Civil Liberties, which received in 2022 Nobel Peace Prize. I decided to become a human rights lawyer when I was a child, studying in school. I got acquaintance with Soviet dissidents. And suddenly I found myself in a circle of fantastic people who tell what they think and do what they tell, who was brave to stood up their voice against the whole totalitarian Soviet machine, who were jailed, subjected to forcible psychological treatment. Part of them were killed, but they didn't stop. They have no other tools to defend human rights and human dignity, but only their own words and their own position. And I was so inspired by their example that I decided myself to study law and to continue this fight for freedom and for human dignity. I will have a lot of universal features. And that is why when my Russian human rights colleagues from Human Rights Center Memorial published last year their report, they analyze the Russian behavior in Chechnya, in Syria, and in Ukraine. They told that this is the same war crime playbook, which was introduced in different contexts. I also think that it's important to define the words properly, because when we speak about peace, peace means a possibility for people to live, to have a freedom to live without fear of violence, and to have a long-term perspective for future. And that is why when we speak about occupation, we have to be clear that occupation is not a peace, it's the same war, but just in another form. And what drives people to commit such horrible things? I think that one of the obvious reasons which we try to deconstruct is impunity. Speaking about Russia's wars against Ukraine, we are going through the hell because Russian troops who committed the same crimes in Chechnya, in Moldova, in Georgia, in Mali, in Libya, in Syria, have never been punished for these atrocities. They start to believe they can do whatever they want. And this tradition of impunity have a long-lasting roots. For example, when we speak about Second World War, when Nazi Germany collapsed and Nuremberg trials were organized, unfortunately, the Soviet Gulag was never condemned or punished for all atrocities which Soviets power commit against their own people. Forcible deportation, colonization, artificial famine, millions repressions, etc., etc. So no surprise that when the whole world commemorates the end of the Second World War with the slogan "Never Again," Russia commemorate this day with a slogan "We can repeat," and now they are repeating. So impunity, it's one of the reasons why we still are fighting with violence in different parts of the globe. I know what I'm talking about because the voice of human rights defenders from other parts of the globe wasn't heard. Because for years and years, we told that country which massively violate human rights, persecute journalists, jailed activists, dispersed peaceful demonstrations, Such countries are provided threat not just for their own citizens, but also for the peace in the entire region. And Russia is a bright example. Also, we try to draw attention of international community to horrible atrocities which Russia commit in Chechnya, in Moldova, in Georgia, in Mali, in other countries of the world. But the world turned the blind eyes for this. And even well-developed democracies, they continue to shake Putin's hand, to do business as usual, to build gas pipeline. And that is why Russia start to think that they can do whatever they want. So this was a very wrong policy, which was contradict the values of human rights and freedoms, which well-developed democracies declare. So that's why I told that the answer is very simple. We have to do what we declare. And we have to base political decisions not just on economic benefits, geopolitical issues, our own political interests or comfort, but on human rights and freedoms. Because even if we benefit in the short term, we all evade a catastrophe in the long term. For international community, this war started in February 2022, but in reality, this war started in February 2014, when Ukraine obtained a chance for the quick democratic transition after the collapse of the authoritarian regime due to revolution of dignity. It was a time when millions of Ukrainians stood up their voice against corrupt and authoritarian pro-Russian government in Ukraine, and they bravely demonstrated just for a chance to build a country where the rights of everybody are protected, government is accountable, judiciary is independent, and police do not beat students who are peacefully demonstrating. And Ukrainians paid a high price for this chance because a lot of people were persecuted and more than 100 peaceful protesters were killed. But when we, as people of Ukraine, got our chance for the quick democratic transition, in order to stop us on this way, Russia invaded. Russia occupied Crimea, part of Luhansk and Donetsk regions, and 2 years ago extended this war to the large-scale invasion. Because Putin is not afraid of NATO. Putin is afraid of the idea of freedom, which came closer to Russian borders. And this is one again proof that this is not just a war between two states. This is a war between two systems, authoritarianism and democracy. As a human rights lawyer, I have been applying the law to defend people and human dignity for many years. But when the war started, we found ourselves in the circumstances when the law doesn't work. Russian troops deliberately shelling on residential buildings, schools, churches, museums, and hospitals. They attack evacuation corridors. They torturing people in filtration camps. They forcibly take Ukrainian children to Russia. They ban Ukrainian language and culture. They abducting, robbing, raping, and killing civilians in the occupied territories. And the entire UN system of peace and security can't stop this. And I found myself, like other Ukrainian human rights colleagues, in a situation in which we can't rely on legal instruments because Russia ignore all these legal instruments. But what I know from my own experience, that when you can't rely on the legal instruments, you can still rely on people. because ordinary people have a much great impact that they can even imagine. We have in our experience several stories which prove this. And probably I will start with the last one. It was large-scale invasion because it was a time when not just Putin, but also our international partners were confident that Ukraine have no potential to resist to such enormous opposing power, and international organizations evacuated their personnel. But ordinary people remained, and ordinary people started to do extraordinary things. It were ordinary people who helped to survive under artillery's fires. It were ordinary people who broke through the encirclement to provide humanitarian aid. It were ordinary people who organized evacuation from the siege cities and settlements under artillery fire from Russian troops. And ordinary people literally started to sacrifice their life to save others whom they never met before. And everything worked like this, that when these systems which we as a humankind established is not working, we still have our own words and our own position as a human beings. First of all, I will start with expressing sincere gratitude to all people in different countries who provide their support and assistance to people in Ukraine in this dramatic time of our history. We are extremely grateful. It's so important to know that you are not alone when you face with the whole Russian military machine. And I think that we can study this example to change something in the international approach of humanitarian assistance. What has to be changed? First, according different investigations and survey, huge international organizations who collect a lot of money wasn't able to spend this money quickly and effective. What do I mean? If you have a lot of internal rules, how to buy water, you, in order to fulfill all these internal rules, sometimes have to spend weeks for complete all these requirements. But people can't wait for weeks when they want water. They will die. And that's why what shocked me, I don't remember the numbers, but it's Google, you can Google, very easy, that this survey shows that in first months of large-scale war, the vast majority of humanitarian work was done by Ukrainian small civil initiatives, which collect the tiny minority of the whole amount of money which were donated for Ukraine. This is something for sure that has to be changed because it's wrong approach. And I hope that people in other countries of the world who will need some time humanitarian assistance will not face with such situation. And second, what has to be done? I think that we have to rethink the whole system of problems and impact, because, for example, we can try to liquidate fires daily for ages, but without repairing the wrong wiring, the fires will emerge. So sometimes it's much more effective to work with the cause than with the impact. I don't say that people don't need humanitarian assistance, but for example, now as I mentioned before, we have problem with energy system in Ukraine because Russia destroyed deliberately. And you can send to people in Ukraine generators, like humanitarian assistance. And this will help temporarily to decrease the human suffering and provide a time to repair the energy infrastructure. But Russia tomorrow can send dozens of rockets again and liquidate the whole energy structure again. So for us, it's better to send us fighter planes to be able to defend Ukrainian sky than dozens and dozens of generators. Because without defending Ukrainian sky, we will always have a problem with energy system, and we will always need a new generators and other facilities to provide people possibility to survive during the winter. I will not give the number, but I will encourage you to look and to compare how much European Union spent money for assistance of Ukraine and how much European Union spent money, especially in the first months of large-scale war, for Russian oil and gas. And just to compare these numbers. Also, what is important, you can compare how much money European Union spent for assistance and how much money of Russian frozen assets they have in their bank systems, which can be used for Ukraine for our self-defense and reconstruction, but still frozen without move, and there is no political will of leaders of European countries and G7 to confiscate it and to transfer it to Ukraine. So it's important to compare, just to see the whole picture, not just speak about concrete measures which were imposed by concrete countries. We have 4 types of international crimes: war crimes, crimes against humanity, genocide, and crime of aggression. And Russia committed all these types of international crimes. And the problem is that while we have international court which can prosecute Putin and his surrounding for war crimes, crimes against humanity, and genocide, there is no international court which has a mandate to prosecute the top political official and high military command of Russian state for the crime of aggression, which is a problem because all these atrocities which we are documenting, it's a result of their leadership decision to start this war. And this is also the common logic. If we want to prevent wars in the future, we have to punish states and their leaders who start such wars in present. Unfortunately, in the whole history of humankind, we have only one such precedent. It was Nuremberg trial, where Nazi war criminals were tried only after Nazi regime had collapsed. All other trials like Yugoslavia tribunals, Rwanda tribunal, or a special court in Sierra Leone, I will simplify, but it's trial where people were convicted because they kill each other not according to the rule. So we have to prohibit the aggressive war as such. And that's why it's so important to create a special tribunal and hold Putin, Lukashenko, and their surrounding accountable. And in order to do it, there is no necessity to wait when and how this war will end. Like we in waiting was humankind was waiting past century till the end of the Second World War. We in 21st century, we have to make justice independent of the magnitude of authoritarian regime's power. It's our task. And that's why we have to create the special tribunal now without delay. It's a very difficult question to answer, but I will try to answer this in this way. I think that one of the problem of current world was described in past century, but by Jose Ortega y Gasset, who wrote Riot of Crowd. And 2 years ago, I reread this book, and I told to myself that it's about our times. The only difference is that we have smartphones and can send the tourist visit to space by rocket. This is the only difference, but the main problem was described by him very bright way. The public intellectuals tell that we live in era of post-truth. I think that we live in era of post-knowledge, because people with access to Google, they don't understand that if they can Google in a second the formula of aspirin, it doesn't make from them chemists. And the meaning of knowledge lost their importance. And that's why millions of people will follow influencers and celebrities who tell them how they have to treat their body, but not to professional doctors. Like they think like this: if you are smart and successful, why you don't have millions of subscribers in social networks? And this is something very widespread in human nature, and that's why people in different countries of the world start to demand the simple and quick solutions. But life is very complex, and a lot of questions needs complex and difficult answers. If you have a rainy nose, you can treat your body with a squats. At least it's not harm the body. But if you have cancer, your demand for a quick solution and delay with actual therapy will have a high price. And I think this is something which is going on, that people don't want to accept complex reality. They ask simple solutions. They start to question the importance of knowledge. And they now, for myself, reproducing the Jose Ortega y Gasset book, which he wrote in past century. Our current generations, especially in well-developed democracies, start to take freedom for granted, and they became consumers of a lot of important things which can't be products like values. So my message will be that freedom is very fragile. We make our own choices every day, and I wish coming generations will be more responsible and more good than we are.